Welcome to Bites and Banter. I'm Rocky McGuire, your host. With us today, we have Jessica Green, who is Practice Director in Technology with Robert Half. How are you doing, Jessica?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's good to have you. It's always fun to talk about things that Robert Half's doing. And I know today we're actually going to dive into something that I think is an exciting topic and something going into 2024 that employers, employees, those people who are looking for jobs, and we'll probably talk a little bit about this too, those people who are looking to make more money are going to be interested in. And so the Robert Half 2024 salary guide. And specifically, we're going to
Yes.
talk about the tech portion today. Can you walk me through before we dive into all like the details, kind of what is the salary guide? Where does Robert Half go to get all the details? Because it's a really, really useful resource. So I'm just curious to hear kind of how it came to be.
Yeah. The salary guide is one of our most coveted, items and has been for decades. So Robert Half is one of the first to put content out there regarding salaries and have continued to evolve it over the years, starting with more of the finance and accounting side, and then now it covers technology, creative, legal, a whole span of different things. But specifically within the technology space, it covers salary ranges for the entire US. We have Canada, we have international, and then it also digs in really specifically for functional roles. So you can figure out based on where you're at, where you should be from a salary standpoint. It also covers tons of benefits and perks, lots of industry insights and survey information about what people want from a retention standpoint. And so the data is collected from a variety of sources, lots of surveys and questionnaires for C-suite executives, across the country and world
Yeah.
on what they're seeing. But in addition to it, our actual real-time placements that we make on our direct hire side of things, someone with a help desk analyst one title, what those salaries are actually booked at for every single deal over time and then averaged out. So it's real data.
That's exciting. I didn't realize it was updated that frequently. We'll make sure when we post this, we'll have a link there too, because it's such a good resource. Now, as I was looking through it, one thing that really stood out to me that I thought was interesting was really around the demand for pay transparency, right?
Mhm.
And just one of the driving factors in people accepting roles, right? And specifically the tech space
Yeah.
is knowing what you're going to make, right? So I'm curious to kind of know, is that like new? Is it like a new trend? Like people choosing
Mhm.
a job based on, are you telling me what I'm making, right? Or is that something
Mhm.
that's kind of always been the case?
No, it's definitely new over the last few years, and a few states have actually put laws into place that require employers to put that on postings. It's picking up popularity. There's a couple different reasons. I think the biggest reason is for pay equity, right? So that way people are able to see what jobs in their field are paying and making sure that they're paid according to the market to minimize the pay gap, in various communities. But also, it's just a more effective use of everybody's time, right? You don't want to interview
Yeah.
someone that's gonna three interviews and then you get to the end and you're way too far apart on a salary. It's a waste of the candidate's time and the employer's time. So it's kind of a twofold, but it is picking up steam in popularity, and some states like New York are actually requiring it for postings.
Is that why LinkedIn you'll see postings and there's some that don't have the pay, but some of them are like like they have like their parentheses right on the pay. Is it because that no matter where you post it, those laws require it to be there?
If you're posting for a remote job,
Okay.
then candidates in those areas might be living in places where it's required. Yeah.
Interesting. Is it something that is in the tech space specifically? I found it interesting to be able to see the different roles and what they make, and
Hmm.
you can search the city you live in, which was for me
Hmm.
really intriguing, right? To see kind
Yeah.
of the different areas from executive leadership to developers to security to the data
Hmm.
scientist side, right? All the different roles that are in there. How like if I'm a potential employee like and I'm going in there, how can I leverage the resource to point me to preparing, right? Like, oh, maybe I'm a help desk analyst too, right? Maybe I'm within the range, but I see that data scientist is maybe 65% higher in salary for that entry
Right.
level.
Yeah.
Like, where can I go to prepare myself and to understand what that role does, or to learn more about the different roles, right? That this have those salaries that maybe I want to grow into.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there's a lot of different answers to that question depending on somebody's specific situation. But I think, if you're employed somewhere now, the best opportunity is to talk to your leadership, express your goals and see if there's opportunity for continued education within your current company, because so many companies right now are understanding the value in that from a retention standpoint, that it's more cost effective for them and better for their culture to invest in their current employees and guide them along their career instead of keep them stagnant in the same role as opposed to that person leaving. If that's not an option for people, there's obviously tons of technology user groups, networking groups that you can join. Obviously, you can do your own training at home. You may have to pay for that on your own. Your company may pay for that, but it's going to be specific to the individual.
Okay. Now, I'm going to ask the hard hitting question. I'm an employee. I open the Robert Half salary guide. I see that I'm making, let's just say, 50 grand a year.
Mm-hmm.
And this role, and I look at my city, right? And
Yeah.
the role's paying 65 for that mid tier. I've been in the role for a couple of years.
Yeah.
What do I do with that? Right? How do I use that information to my
Right.
advantage and maybe be fairly compensated, or to ask
Mm-hmm.
for that, right, additional bump that seems like everybody around me is making in the area? Walk
Yeah.
me through kind of what
Mm-hmm.
that might look like.
Yeah, that always is it's always a question that pops up, and sometimes companies, love the transparency and other times they don't. But I think the reality is people can go and find this information online if they really want to, right? They can ask their neighbor. They can figure it out. So it's all about communication with your leadership and expressing like, here's where I'm at. And it comes to research, right? So make sure you're prepared for those conversations. You need to take the time to look into what people in the market are making, reflect upon your performance personally as well, see where you are compared to your peers. Make sure to list out things that you've done that have contributed to the team, to give yourself a business case to ask for that raise. So that way, when you go into that meeting, you're a lot more prepared. You know what number to ask for, and you have reasons to support that.
What's the methodology I think Robert Half recommends? Is it RAP for going in to ask for a
Yes, oh
raise?
my gosh,
To
I'm worst with acronyms, but yes, it's RAP. So it's reflect and research, which is what I said, but just more
yeah,
concise.
yeah.
Reflect, research, then act. So ask for that meeting, make sure you're prepared, and then and prepare. So reflect, research, act, prepare.
It's easy to remember. Real easy to
Yeah,
remember. I
yeah,
want a
just
raise. I need a RAP.
right. And it's easy to get emotional in those types of conversations, or if you're
Mhm.
not prepared to, you might not get another opportunity with your leader to ask that. So you want to make sure when you do have the opportunity that you're as prepared as possible and that you can state your case and get what you feel you deserve.
Yeah, no, I think it's always a challenging conversation, and I'm curious to hear just your thoughts and what you've seen from employers, how they navigate paying people fairly and inflation, right? Because inflation
Uh,
impacts, you know, me
Everything.
as an employee,
Yeah.
right, and my employer and what they have to spend. I'm curious to kind
Mhm.
of, I wonder how those tie together, right? Asking for that. How does your business and where they're at,
Mhm.
like, what can you do to prepare yourself and be aware of where your
Right.
business performance is? Because
Yeah.
it obviously and it does impact those conversations.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and that's part of the preparation process. If you know your
Mhm.
company is in a
That's a
hiring
good
freeze,
point.
they're having a really negative year from a financial standpoint, but you want to stay at your company, you understand the value of your company, it might not be an appropriate time to ask, right? So that might be a time where you hold off and know that okay, right now the company is on a position to offer this. But this question actually ties into some of the 2024 predictions as well, because 2023 was a weird year in the market. A lot of companies, even if they were doing well, were very cautious on, increasing salaries, hiring more people, or kicking off projects that could be expensive. And so the more we push this off into 2024, and I say we because so many of the clients that I'm talking to are giving me that when I ask them, "Hey, what's up?" It's we're waiting until 2024 to kick this project off, to hire this person, to open this rec, to we're on a hiring freeze, what have you. But the needs aren't going away. And the
Mhm.
trends are the trends. And if everyone's looking to execute on the same trends at the same time, I think we all know what that's gonna mean for us. So, but it goes back to part of the preparation process and make sure that your company's in a position to offer you that so that you are setting yourself up for success.
Now that makes sense. That prepared piece is
Yeah,
extremely important to know all the details, right? It's not just what is everybody else making, it's what is my organization making? Do I want to stay here? Do I look outside, right? Do I want to maybe look for contract work? There's a lot of factors that go into it.
totally.
I want to, you know, ask the question, right? How do you know if it's a good time? Like, what are the things that, if I'm an employee, like,
Mhm.
what should I look for to say, oh, now's a good time to ask because I see where I'm at? Like, what are
Yeah,
those factors?
that's a good question. I mean, I think a lot of times we just hear through osmosis of, how things are going. If there's, new business deals, if you should check your quarterly financial results as well. It should be transparent at most
Mhm.
companies, and the goal for leadership should be to be transparent about those things. And if you aren't sure and it's not transparent, it's okay to ask, because it's really important for everyone. If you want retention from your employees, to be transparent with them about where the company's at and how they're doing as a part of that company. So hopefully, and I feel like most people that I talk to have a pretty good pulse on how their company's doing right now, based on the industry that they're in, right? There's industry trends that can point in that direction. Certain industries may be struggling, various other ones may be, very busy. And so just keeping your tabs, on economic updates as well.
So
Hopefully
you
will be
mean
some
reading the
quickness.
email with the quarterly financial reviews is probably more important than maybe as an entry level employee, I might think it should be sometimes,
Yeah,
right? There's
right,
information to be had, right, that
right.
can help
And
prepare you for some of these conversations.
it could be the difference in waiting 2 months,
Mhm.
to ask for that raise, because you might not get another opportunity if you ask at the wrong time or you aren't prepared. You need to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success. And so that goes back to the preparation piece. If it's not the right time, just like I never asked my dad for money when he was writing checks to pay the bills growing up at the kitchen table. Like, wait for another time when the answer might be yes. Now's not the time.
Right.
So I mean, you need
I
to you need to be aware.
I did some preliminary research, if you will, in preparation for this conversation, our chat, because I was curious what people who are known in the industry, and not necessarily just the technology industry, but the people who are spending money in leadership roles. And so I happened to find two examples from two sharks from Shark Tank,
Oh my
Barbara and
gosh,
Kevin O'Leary,
love
which
the
is
shark.
ironic. I'm like, huh, it's a great show. If you want to learn anything about business, it's a fantastic place to go
Yeah.
watch and learn the questions that leaders ask for
Hmm.
investment. But both of them, and this was a while ago, so I'd be curious to know how their perception changed with the economy, if it did at all. But both of them said something that was really interesting, and it's critical that you have the details on your performance and
Hmm.
why you deserve what you're asking for, and
Yes.
that's part of that preparedness, right? And a good way to look at it is if I'm sitting on the other side of the table and Jessica's my manager, I should be asking myself, what does Jessica really need to know to make that decision, right?
Mhm.
To give me what I want to ask and
Yeah.
come prepared to talk about those things, right?
Yeah.
And so, really interesting. Obviously, pay, see, the report shows, right? And this is no surprise, shouldn't be surprise to most people who are listening or who go look at the report. Pay is the number one leading, like, what am I looking for, right? From an
Mhm.
employment
Yeah.
standpoint. Um, but it's not the only thing.
Right.
What are those other factors that
Yeah.
the salary guide said that leaders can do, right? So for employers, those who are leading, to help maybe bridge that gap if it's not the right time, to make sure they're doing the things that people are looking for that keep them around, right? Retention wise.
Yeah. Pay is and probably always has been the number one motivation. I think most people would not work if they were multimillionaires, So we need money, right? But I think the other piece of it is there's so much going into it from a benefits and perks standpoint, and it's not just the same as it used to be where it's, health, dental, vision insurance, call it a day. Flexible work, as we all know, has been such a massive hot button and continues to be as um, everybody, companies and individuals figure out what the right balance is for them. And so being open-minded as an employer to know that although it could be tricky, allowing your teams and groups and individuals to make decisions based on what works best for them as opposed to mandating one way or the other, allowing the flexibility. And I think the key word is flexibility, because flexibility for me might be different from what flexibility means for you, and allowing each person to be adults, do their job, have that flexibility, but also have that allows people to prioritize other things in their life that is important to them. And so that's a huge lever when it comes to pay, flexibility being the absolute highest on the scale right after compensation.
How do you how would an employer navigate a desire to have a culture of post-COVID of we want people together again,
Yeah,
right? And
that's so hard.
we wanna have flexibility. I definitely think about those like service desk type roles or
Yeah,
those field technician type roles where it's very transactional, right? Like we
yeah.
need the transaction to run our business.
Hmm.
How do you navigate like that desire for culture and those type of roles with that flexibility, right? Like what does that look like? What have you
Yeah.
seen work?
It's a good question, and I can share what I'm seeing in my opinion. But honestly, if I had the answer to that, I feel like I would be, on like a national stage talking to business leaders, because it's a huge struggle still. It's the chips are still falling where they may, and people are struggling. There's been, people that have quit over it. There have been, a lot of challenges, so many challenges, and it's still happening. I think the biggest key is and I've seen some teams do it successfully in the service desk space, where you're allowing, flexibility, but it's really about it has to be individual teams working with their manager and what works in a fair and equitable way for their team while still accommodating individuals on that team. So it's very complex. And there's not one answer, to across the board, even for one company. Because while, developers or systems people, it might be totally fine for them to work from home every day, come in whenever needed. Service desk could be different. Help or desktops, especially, is different a lot of times with physical hardware. So it really is a complicated topic. And to say that we as a society have like discovered a solution would be, we're still very far away from like that being defining a new
Yeah,
normal. Like the new normal quote is overused, but it's true. We just still haven't executed like a new normal
right.
yet, and it's still people are still figuring it out.
Yeah, change is never going away, right? And the economy is
Right.
going to change, and
Yeah.
jobs are going to change, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Some questions around the job market and some of the
Yeah.
roles that kind of are intriguing to me, even
Mhm.
from a contract perspective. But I think one thing that stays consistent, right, is people are at the forefront of it all. And to your point, not every size, there's not one size fits all,
Yeah.
right? It's critical to think what does our business need to drive outcome, but
Mhm.
what does that mean for our people and how can we bridge that gap and marry the two?
Right.
Because they're not mutually exclusive, right? You just because you have to be a desk side worker or a service desk worker doesn't mean as a team you can't have some flexibility. Now the flexibility might look different than a developer to your point, but
Yeah.
there's definitely I think value there and
Mhm.
figuring that out, right?
Yeah.
So so let me pull up. I had a number that I wrote down here that I thought was really, really interesting. So this is the hybrid work, right? We're talking about that.
Yeah.
One of the numbers that popped out to me when I was looking at the salary
Mhm.
guide was 89% of technology professionals would be willing to come into the office full time if
Mhm.
offered a salary premium. So like an 18% increase was like the average.
Yeah. Yeah.
What does that indicate for the future of work in the future of employers' priorities as they're working with the potential candidates or their existing employees? Like what does
Yeah.
that look like, do you think, next
It's a
year,
real
2 years from
interesting
now?
stat. It's a super interesting stat because some people, might live in California and work for a company in Minneapolis and they can't
Mhm.
go into the office. But based on that stat alone, I would say it's just a good indicator that companies need to understand that you need to have a lot of tools to be able to do pushes and pulls with candidates for retention, right? Some people may, if you really want people to come in the office, what types of incentives or what are they going to receive from that? What are they going to get out of that outside of just checking a box? Are they going to be compensated more? Is that what they want? Do they want that or do they want something else? So understanding that, and that goes back to the benefits and perks piece of allow it to be a benefit or a perk, but also have other benefits and perks based on research in your tool belt. So that way, as you're getting to know candidates or as you're managing your teams, hopefully you're getting the individual story from each person and you're able to pull in different tools depending on what's important to that person. And that's why the benefits and perks piece, more so the perks now than the benefits we've always had, and been getting better at a lot of companies. But the perks piece is new, and that's something that you can draw on to incentivize people based on the types of perks they're interested in. So again, it's like a personal choice. And some people may say, I only want to work from home. I don't care how much you pay me, but there's always going to be the extremes. So I'm not surprised to see that. I think more and more people that were 100% work from home-ers are now more open to hybrid work. Maybe they've gotten back into the mix and like, yeah, this is kind of fun. I remember this, I'll come in more often if you pay me more type of thing.
Right.
I'm not
I miss
surprised.
potlucks.
Right. I'm not surprised to
Yeah.
see it. I think everyone's opinions and feelings have adjusted various ways over the
Right.
last couple of years and for so many reasons.
Something else that stood out to me was the 32% leading cause of burnout being a lack of manager support. I feel like,
Yeah.
I did a breakout at HDI Support World Live last year, and I looked at metrics around employee engagement, and it
Hmm.
seemed like leadership and the leadership pressure and just some leadership really just struggles was a
Hmm.
much higher number that was
Yeah.
driving some engagement. So I'm curious, is this actually a number that's going down? Because that's the way I read it, but I wasn't sure
Yeah.
if that's a
It's
true
going
assumption.
down. And I think, yeah, it is. It's going down. And I think the reason behind that is, and this is more my opinion, but um
Mhm.
over the last few years, companies realized and managers realized there was a shift that was made, right? From leading from a command and control standpoint to leading with more of an empathy standpoint. And managers, I know my company specifically, but lots of companies were investing in trainings for leaders, how we can be more supportive of our teams, how we can have individualized approaches for the people on our teams. And that gives managers more exposure to what their individuals are going through, how they can help them on a day-to-day basis, roll up their sleeves and participate, in the mix with the rest of the team and be less of kind of a manager from up top. And that's creating more cohesive team. And so there may be still challenges for individuals, but it might be less their manager's fault now. That
Yeah,
makes sense.
that makes a lot of sense. I think it paints a picture that organizations that invest in their leaders and helping their leaders understand how to meet people's needs, just like benefits and perks, right? Like, how do I
Mhm.
meet their individual needs? Obviously impacts the morale, the engagement, right? All of
Yeah,
those things. So it's very, very interesting to me to see
yeah,
that. Uh,
yeah.
Now let's go. Let's stick with the burnout topic because this is one that I found very intriguing. Was 57% say the leading cause of burnout is heavy workload. Okay,
Yeah.
now this is going to be a couple pieces in this conversation and
Hmm.
a couple questions I have about this specific piece because there was a lot of numbers in there too around the different types of markets that are going to be or skills that employers are going to be willing to pay more money for.
Yeah.
And one of those leading items were AI skills,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So how do you foresee AI skills, whether it's for those people who the workload is, driving burnout, or
Hmm.
AI and AI impact to that specific component
Yeah.
of the technology space?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's really actually a complex question. I think part of it is there's 2023 versus 2024.
Yep.
There's AI skills, and so part of the AI piece, why AI individuals can demand more money. Obviously, there's demand there, and companies see the investment in AI as a massive efficiency for their business. You can get by with maybe a few less employees overall if those individuals are able to be more effective through automation, which we've seen. Still need the people to do it, obviously, but when you look at the skill sets too, you're not going to be able to hire someone fresh out of college that has AI skill sets and can just hit the ground running. It takes time. The individuals that are able to demand more money are people that started out as a, entry level person, worked their way up through the systems side or through the development side, and have a broad background of technology knowledge, architecture, old school technologies. They know how to migrate, from physical to virtual. And then now they're getting into automation. So those individuals have a really good resume. And without the AI, they probably could already demand a really high salary. Now give them the AI and they're up, quite a bit up there. It's hard for people to catch up. So the folks that can do this are a specific group of highly compensated individuals, but it's going to take a while for people who are getting into IT and getting into our market to get to that same level. They're not just going to be able to take a couple classes and be there. There's a years and years of knowledge that they need to acquire before they can demand that level. And so a lot of times clients will say, well, I need an AI person and they only need like 2 years of experience. It's fine. I'm like, cool. But anybody that has this level of experience is going to take way more than 2 years. So they're
Mhm.
still going to be very
That's
expensive. There's this is not, it
that's
hasn't been.
interesting. Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I think in my space, I have talked to a number of people who are, I want to really be in the AI space. I really want to be in the LLM space. When I never really, before you said that, thought about the value
Yeah.
that they experience as a help desk agent or as somebody who's working on migrations or
Yeah.
data security, data analytics, how that experience helps you understand the business
Yeah.
so those AI skills can actually bring
Hmm.
valuable outcome when you go to a place where you're going to be able to use them.
Right.
Very
I think
interesting.
what I anticipate or what I think is a great investment for companies to consider is bringing in, yes, those individuals are going to be expensive. They're going to be high level, but there's a lot of consultants that do this, and you bring them in, they help you implement this into your environment. They can cross train the teams that you have that are looking to upskill themselves while you're already paying them to upgrade your environment. And then when they're wrapping up their consulting engagement, your team now has the tools to maintain it, and then you're investing in your people, and it pays you back not only from an automation and productivity standpoint, but also from a retention standpoint for those individuals that are looking to upskill. That's a pathway to the earlier question that you answered. But those individuals, it's going to be hard while they're doing their day-to-day job to also learn these new complicated skills. And so that's where the opportunity for the demand is going to come into play in 2024 for those individuals that already have that knowledge.
One thing that I think stood out too is just the amount of people in the tech world who are willing to take temporary assignments, that contract work,
Mhm.
and specifically the AI space. What does the future of that contract AI work look like? Because
Yeah.
I'm not super familiar with outside of the consultancy opportunities, right? That you might
Mhm.
see. Like, what is contract AI process automation? What does that look like? Do you see from a future perspective in 2024 and beyond?
Yeah, we've already seen it this year when it comes to companies reaching out for individuals. When they are reaching out, they want somebody that has already has professional experience in, organizations doing this type of skill set. And it's the same as consulting has always been, time and time again. Anytime something new comes out, there's always a limited pool of candidates that actually have that experience in production that can go out there and do these things. And as for the next handful of years, it's going to remain really hot because there's always early adopters, and then there's always companies that are way, way far behind. But by the time we're through this, it's going to be some new hot technology and we're going to start the process over. So, 5, 10 years ago, it may have been something different, but because there's such a small pool and because there's such expensive resources, cloud consulting allows you to bring in a resource for a shorter duration of time and improve your environment, cross-train your people, and then move on from that. You're not going to need to hire that person at an insanely expensive salary and retain them forever. You need them for a specific amount of time for a specific purpose, and then they can move on and help someone else. So I definitely see consulting in this space as probably our biggest area of opportunity next year from a service provider standpoint.
Interesting. The amount of AI conversation you can down a lot of rabbit holes. 'Cause technology components there, right? What technology is going to matter? How is it going to
Yeah.
change? All I don't know if you saw in the news all the stuff with OpenAI, right? That's going on with the board and the changes there. How's that all going to impact? So it's a very interesting time
Right,
to
and
be looking
it's,
at AI and AI skills.
yet to be seen in so many instances. Companies are
It's funny because
still
it's
very conservative with, the usage and how to proceed.
well, it's a scary but exciting technology, right?
Yes.
Which makes it a scary and exciting skill for somebody to maybe go seek out. And
Yeah.
I think what I noticed about Salary Guide too is AI in my head was like, oh, this is going to be a number one. From a volume perspective, it probably isn't even close to the demand, right? From a number one priority that people are looking for in job
Mhm.
opportunities in the
Yeah.
market. I'd be curious to know from what you've seen in the Salary Guide, what are those, right, top skills that
Mhm.
people are looking to fill roles for from a volume perspective, right? Because there's salaries, but then there's also this pure number of openings, right? And this is going to
Yeah.
be a growing portion if you compare yourself to this role. What are those roles that really stood out as you
Yeah.
guys looked into 2024?
Yeah. There's a few that are, very hot and more, trending, and then there's a few that are just tried and true. The most volume, easily hands down, is technical support, whether it's help desk, desktop, or a blend. And companies have continued to invest in support, from individuals that can get to know the company, get to know the employees, um, understand the products and services, and provide a high level of service to internal employees, because that again is an investment in retention and support of your employees. We see the absolute highest volume in this space, hands down. And although automation tools help individuals be more effective at their job, those individuals will never be replaced, which is amazing. And every time I see a company try to move away from that, they end up regretting it 6 months, 12 months later, and end up moving back to hiring individuals for their teams. So, of course, timely with the HDI podcast, but help us up individuals, like you got to have them. And it's the absolute highest volume. Outside of that, um, systems engineers with physical to virtual Azure migration experience, scripting automation skills, data
Python, any
analytics, data
languages,
automation,
any
Python. Python primarily is what
okay.
I'm hearing about. And then data automation tools, data visualization tools like Power BI and Tableau, PMs and BAs that have done, specific software implementations. They're always pretty niche, right? Every company's like, I need someone with this exact experience, but that skill set still remains very hot too. Um, and then developers that have really current, cloud technology. Those have been the absolute hottest for us for a consistent amount of time. Oh, and how could I forget cybersecurity? Cybersecurity, governance, risk, and compliance.
That's what that tells me is like service desk never going away, right? You're never going to automate the service desk out.
Yeah, you
And
can try,
this has
but
been
people will
a
not happy.
even LLMs, right? As you look at the technologies that offer LLM support for agent assist type,
Mhm.
opportunities, it's
Yep.
there to help the agent become more efficient,
Yeah.
not to replace the agent, right? And organizations that are driving chat bot type of adoption, right?
Mm-hmm.
From an OCM perspective, you can push everybody to that, but you're still never going to remove the human element, right? Which is interesting
Mm-hmm.
that there is a stigma at times, but I think it's kind of changing from what
Yeah.
I've seen where people are in the service desk space, right? That help desk IT support space are
Mm-hmm.
becoming less and less fearful
Yeah.
of
Right.
AI, right? And more starting to understand. And I think honestly, ChatGPT has had a huge push in that, like, oh, this
Mm-hmm.
isn't replacing my need to know information or to do something.
Right.
It's just helping me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then as you're talking about those different roles, what I also hear too is, man, if you're in the help desk space, there's an opportunity for you to really hone your skills and learn why you're doing that role.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be the end goal for you, right? You don't have to feel stuck. You just
Mm-hmm.
have to own that knowledge and that development. How do I get into data
Yeah.
scientist, right? How do I get into data visualization type of skills and
Mm-hmm.
tinker and play and Python? That's why I asked about Python. I feel like that's where everybody starts, but I
Yeah.
see everybody talking who's in that space that I work with, like using Python to make
Yeah.
everything else happen.
Yeah,
right?
it's popular for sure. And the other piece of it too is within the development space, you know, we're not ready for AI to write code, but there is huge opportunity for monotonous, outdated type of tasks to be automated where it's, maybe a really old technology that you're able to maybe retranslate into something more current like .NET. Or you're allowed to maybe allow your developers that you have on staff to be more effective by using the tools to augment their skill set or automate, just like in the help desk, how you might automate password resets, right? You're able to
Mhm.
automate some of the monotonous things that are not necessarily benefiting the individual to do these tasks. It allows them to be free to do a little bit more productive project-based work that's more mentally stimulating for them, Again,
Yeah.
retention, happier employees.
Yeah, and I think you'll see the tech, right? And I know we're talking tech right now, but the AI and that tech capability is probably going to trickle to other parts of the business. Think about lawyers who are
Absolutely.
needing to document, a full-on statement
I've
of
seen
work
that
and
too.
validate everything. Yeah, it's just there's a lot of value there.
Finance, data
Yep.
automation, Power BI and Tableau, all over in the finance space right now. That's been huge for sure. Marketing and creative, legal, it's all blending together.
Let's dive more into that retention concept because I think obviously being a podcast that's sponsored by HDI, the IT support is our bread and butter with
Yeah.
the IT managers, IT agents, the leaders leading that group. And I
Mhm.
think it's going to be who's lots going to listen to this is going to be those tech leaders.
Yeah.
Outside of giving them more money, right? What are I have a list of things that I think in my head you probably align with too. But walk me through
Mhm.
some of those things you've seen that really help drive that retention, right?
Yeah.
As we talked about hybrid work, talked about kind of that flexibility. What else goes into that?
Mhm. Yeah, I would say things that I have seen work for
Mhm.
various environments, taking a special interest individually in what people want to do and allowing them or like knighting them with the privilege to own a specific group, own a specific tool. Maybe they like to do like party planning committee. Maybe they like to do HDI and they want to get into mentorship. I mean that's I've seen a lot of that through HDI. They want to be a trainer. They want to help, bring on new employees. They're really interested in specific technologies or documentation. Like figure out what individually each person is good at or interested in, and then give them the space to have those special projects to invest their time. The companies that are able to invest in, finding 24/7 evening, weekend support, off hour support, automate password resets, things again that are not necessarily mentally stimulating for those individuals to free up more time for them to invest in special interest projects that benefit the organization and the culture.
I love that. So it sounds like what works, and this has probably been true for a long time, but it's mentoring, right? Having someone to
I think of
mentor
HDI
you
every
who's
time I think of that. I think of specific people that I know from HDI that have done these things that have been really effective.
the way that I like to word what you're saying, and I feel to me it's a really good summary. Is a good leader wants something for their team, not just something from their team,
Yes, for sure.
right? And I think about a list like I think mentoring, training, development, recognition, rewards, right? None of these really necessarily cost, right? Good onboarding
Right.
training and good orientation, right? Things that start you off the right foot are really things that leaders and organizations don't necessarily have to throw a ton of money at to make them
Yeah.
successful
It
and valuable,
usually
right?
costs you nothing, right? But
Right.
it brings value back, whether it's monetary or, retention always brings monetary value back, regardless of if you can track it or not.
Right. I mean, think about the longer someone's a part of your organization, and you guys have probably seen this with the amount of organizations you work with, but the longer someone stays within an organization, the more they know that customer, internal or external, the more
Yeah.
they know the ins and outs of how to navigate that knowledge base, the more ultimately they're able to drive value, right, for those stakeholders. So
Mhm.
retention is I see so much benefit in doing the little things,
Yeah,
even if you can't give them more money right now, right?
absolutely. Well, and it brings back revenue to the company, whether it's external clients, the retention is there if they have a rep that they know, that they trust, and or if it's internal users that they're supporting, those internal users have the support that they need to do their job. They're going to feel that's going to contribute to those people staying as well, and then they're going to serve the outside client. So it all comes back around to
Yeah,
retention.
I love it. So I know we're coming up close to kind of our time. Let me I have two more questions for you. First one, I'm gonna kind of throw the ball into your court.
Okay.
In the 2024 salary guide, right, I've looked at it, super useful, right? Specifically technology space.
Mhm.
What do you feel like for an employee or an employer, potential employer, someone looking in the market,
Yeah.
i- is the biggest benefit to really diving in the details there for them?
You know, it really depends on the individual and what they're looking for. I think one side of it is the candidate in the market considering their own personal career, and the other side of it is a leader that's looking at it from their standpoint. From an individual candidate standpoint, I think the number one thing is figuring out where am I in the market, what should I ask for my next raise, or if I'm in the market looking, what should I ask for? What is a fair compensation range for me? Easy for somebody individual on the candidate side. On the client side, it also varies. If you're a manager, you want to look at the specific help desk individuals. There's tier one, there's tier two, there's tier three, there's locations. Narrow it down to your team and figure out like, is your team being compensated, fairly according to the market? And then of the people on your team, is it equitable? Because a lot of times you have folks that have worked for you for 15 years and they started at a really low salary and they get tiny, tiny increases every year. But then if you had to hire someone during the Great Resignation in 2021 and pay absolute max, that person might be a lot higher than someone who's been a loyal employee for a really long time. So those are difficult business decisions that managers need to make, probably in conjunction with their HR team. And I would say HR, the exact same, but the HR may have more interest in the benefits and perks piece as well to make sure that they're on par there. But it depends on what role you're playing. But I think it just opens up good conversations for people. And again, coming back to that transparency conversation of making sure that everybody feels appreciated and compensated appropriately.
Love it. Love it. Anything else you want to throw out there that you think, if I want to use salary guide, if I have questions, where can people go? Anything else you want to throw out there before
Yeah.
I ask you my send off question that you're not prepared for?
Yeah, no, all good. I mean, roberthalf.com, easy. You can get there. Salary guide should be front and center, whether you're, so you should be able to access it from there. If you're looking for a job or if you're looking for candidates, there's, separate sections there. So very easy to navigate. And again, we used to have paper copies of the salary guide up until the pandemic, which we would physically pass out to you. And surprise, surprise, when the pandemic happened, those numbers did not get updated in those printed copies. So we have digital copies now. You can even just Google Robert Half and you'll find the website and it should be on there for you.
Fantastic, fantastic conversation around retention and salary transparency, the tool. Um, One question I have for you that I want to send off the episode with, if you could give young Jessica any advice based on what now Jessica has learned throughout her career and
Yeah.
life in a paragraph, 60 seconds or less, what
Mhm.
advice would you give young Jessica?
Oh yeah, I know exactly what the advice would be, and my boss, if she watches this, will totally know what I'm talking about. Don't be afraid to ask for what you need. Be vocal. And twofold of that is, throughout your career, your life is going to change and the needs that you have are going to change as well. You're going to have different seasons of life where you're going to need different things from different people. And if your company wants to retain an individual for a long amount of time, having the transparent conversations about what you need when is very important. So just don't be afraid to vocalize what you need to your leaders.
Love that. And I appreciate you taking that curveball and taking it with stride.
Anytime. Always throw me the curveballs. I love it.
I'm excited to get this inaugural episode of Bites and Banter launched, and I'm very thankful, Jessica, you gave me the chance to have a conversation with you about
Absolutely.
something that's so relevant to the technology industry and every role and employers and employees. A lot of really good information. So, shameless plug for Robert Half's resources. Look at the 2024 salary guide. Even if you're just curious, you're not really looking for a raise, not looking for a career jump. It's really cool to see kind of where things land. So,
Absolutely.
Jessica,
And if you
that
do,
being
and you
said,
have questions
yeah.
and you're not sure who your person is, maybe I'm in Minneapolis, maybe you're somewhere across the country, call your local office and ask for someone to walk through it with you, because somebody will be there and will be able to walk through it with you and will know your market really well. So that's one last plug.
Love it. Hey, plug away, plug away. We appreciate all the support Robert Half has given HDI over the years, and looking forward to further conversations about different things that are going on in the tech space. And Jessica, if you ever have anything that you feel like, hey, I want to come talk about it, I love our conversations. It's
Awesome.
really enjoyable to talk to you, and the conversation flows, and I enjoy it. So feel free to reach out, let me know.
Likewise.
That being Thank you. That being said, if you have any questions, Jessica gave you a lot of good input. And if not, we'll see you on the next episode of Bites and Banter.
Thank you.